Hi, and welcome to Renewed in His Presence Ministries. I'm Susan Clarke, and I'm here with you today on Reflections of the Deeper Life, a journey into discipleship. I've had this vision for this blog since probably about 2007. I started a writing blog, a written blog, and out of that, back in 2000 and probably 11, maybe it was the first time I made my first blog here, I just had this in my heart that I want to communicate, and I want to communicate through a video blog. That's something that was in my heart. So I tried to do it myself. I tried with all of my heart to make it work. I did my very best using my computer, using different things that I had available to me, my iPhone and different things, and my husband would help me MacGyver up some stuff so that I could do it. And it just was very hard. Even the location that we were at, the home that we were in, the setting up and tearing down. But this is a studio that is mine, that is actually the library of our home. And now that our children are gone and on and no longer here, I have it set up and it's available, and I come in and here I am, and I sit down and I turn the camera on and I begin talking. And I really want to tell my story. Why? Because that's the power of the Christian walk, is our testimony and our testifying to who Jesus is, to what He's done, announcing the good news that He is Lord and that He has come and set up a new kingdom in the midst of this old kingdom that resides here. God's kingdom came, it was established, there's a new order, there's a new rule, and I'm a part of it, and I came to become a part of it back in 1980. I've had a tremendous opportunity in life to do so many things, and I feel like that this is what I need to do, is to tell my story. And so the title is Reflections of the Deeper Life, a journey into discipleship. Began for me back in February of 1980, when I actually gave my life to the Lord, or began to follow Jesus. I've come to learn that just trying to get people into saying a prayer of salvation, come say this prayer with me, confess on the Lord Jesus, pray this prayer after me, and now you're saved, now you're in heaven, no worries. But the Christian life is much deeper than that, and I think we've done a disservice to many people to think that prayer, that confession of that prayer, is really the power that keeps them. The power that keeps us is the power of God. And I became a disciple of Christ that day in my bedroom, when I experienced the power of God in a supernatural way, when He came in my room and in the middle of a very dark place in my life, took a hold of me, got a hold of the inside of my life and transformed me. I felt Him. He was real. There wasn't I didn't go around intellectually thinking about Him. I had a powerful, transforming experience like Paul, the apostle, on the road to Damascus. However, I wasn't out killing Christians, and I wasn't out trying to destroy those because I was a zealot, because I was on fire for God, which is what Paul was. He thought he was doing God a service. But my life was in a very deep, desperate place. And on the inside of me, I was just longing and looking for something. I don't even know. But through a few little circumstances and situations in my life, I ran into some different people who were believers and who would say to me, God can help you, Susan. God can help you. And I found myself running into all of these people. And we also, in our family, I was raised in the Methodist tradition of faith, and we went to church most of our life growing up, and I learned about God there within my father's immediate family, within his brothers and sisters. They're believers, and so there was conversation about God there. And all throughout my life, there were different seeds that were planted, but it was in those I graduated high school in 75. Between 75 and 1980, there were a lot of things that happened in those 5 years. I found myself in a very dark place. The decisions that I'd made in my life, it was just a very dark world that I lived in. And I was desperate, and I really needed help, and I knew that it was beyond my own power to get that help. And I was an addict. I was an alcoholic, a full-fledged alcoholic. I had done drugs. Drugs were a part of my life, but it was the alcohol that was my challenge. I was an alcoholic. I didn't go to AA because I don't know if anybody was really talking about that in my circle back then. But I was desperate. And one night, after I had had a conversation with a friend of mine at a bar in Buffalo, New York, this girl had gone off to college. She was from Kenmore, New York. She'd gone off to college, and in college had had her encounter with God. And she came back a transformed. She was so changed. I can't even begin to tell you. She was bright. She was light. She was filled with hope. She was kind. She was just a totally different person. Night and day. That's the only way I can describe it to you. And she began to talk to me about her experience. She went to this bar with me. Of course, I thought she was going to party and drink like we'd always done before, but she didn't. She sat on the other side of the table with a glass of water. I don't know what she had, maybe a ginger ale or 7-Up or something, Coke. But, I had my drinks. I needed a drink. And so I'm drinking, and she's telling me this story, and she's talking to me about what happened to her. And as I started talking about my challenges that I was facing at that moment, all of the difficulties in my life, and there were many, and they were very serious. And she just leaned, and I told her that I throughout the last year and a half, that all of these different people had come into my life and started talking to me about Jesus, the power of God, getting saved, coming to know the Lord, turning your life over to Christ, walking in this new way of living. God has something for you that you don't even know about. Well, I was just so lost. I'm like, there's no way that God wants me, because I can't be who God thinks He wants. There's no way that I'm going to go to church and be a churchy person, because that's not in me. And I remember one person telling me one day, this is a different person, not Cindy, but it was Pat, Lady Indian Pat, working at a camp. And she said, Susan, the thing is that it's not about you doing anything. It's about you opening your life and believing and seeing who Christ is, and just believing in Him, believing that He can help you, believing in Him, and then He will change you. I'm like, what? He'll change me? I didn't understand that at all. Where does that come from? And, it's a process of learning. It's a process of understanding. So here I am sitting there with Cindy, and she's basically saying the same thing. I'm pouring out my heart, and I'm drinking, pouring out my heart. And then she leans over to me and she says, just ask Him to come. Just pray and just ask Him to come. Just see what He will. And in fact, pray with me right now. Well, I was too proud, and I wasn't ready to just in a bar stick my hands out and say some kind of prayer. And I just said, no, I'm not ready. I went back to my apartment that night, and that was where some of my troubles were going on. And my roommates had every reason in the world to be angry at me and mad at me and hate me and want to see me gone. So I'm all on that right there. I get that. And so they sort of blasted me, and I just went into my room. I shut the door, and I just knelt down, and I genuinely, with my own heart, by myself in my bedroom, said, Lord, Jesus, if you are really risen from the dead and alive, and there's something to who you are, I genuinely want to know you. Come. I welcome you to come and help me. And at that very moment, as I was praying that prayer, I can't even really, in earthly terms, tell you what happened, other than there was a huge power explosion, and I felt the presence of God come on me, and I felt darkness leaving. I felt a war, a real war of good and evil in that room for me, and I felt a real transformation. And I don't know how to really explain it, but it was a living thing that came and just took a hold of me and just did something to the powers. I felt darkness leaving me. Well, that's kind of the beginning of this story. That's what I want to talk to you about, the journey of a discipleship, reflections of a deeper life. That began a lifelong journey that I've been on. That was 1980. This is 2016. It's been 35 full years. I'm into my 36th year of walking with Christ. I've had the most tremendous opportunities. I really sensed in the beginning of my Christian walk that I sensed a calling. Not everybody senses a calling to ministry or to follow the Lord in a certain way. You know, Paul, we see his calling out. There's a calling out. I sensed that calling out early on in my life. And I separated myself and I let God work in me, and I followed that calling. People follow it. If you don't understand it, it's fine. Nobody's asking you to do it. It was a part of who I was, and it's a part of who I am today, and it's a part of why I'm doing this. The calling is here. It's real. There's been changes in our life. My husband, God has blessed him with an incredible mind. And for many, many years, he worked in ministry, and he did a lot of awesome things for ministry for people. Back in 2009, he personally had a personal crisis, a personal situation, and he discovered some things about himself. And so let's say from 2009 until now, 2016, he's really understanding who he is, what his giftings are. He's not chasing the proverbial carrot out in front of him, dangling, and he's also not just doing things to get ahead in ministry, which I don't know if that's really what his intentions were all those years, but he has come to grips with who he is, the gifts that are in him, how he's wired, and what he really can do. And in a time in our life when we needed to have some help, this particular situation opened up, and he developed software that is turned into an incredible opportunity for him as a job. He loves the Lord as much as he did. He loves God, and that teaching and that ministry opportunity is going to be there for him. At the moment, he's focusing on this. It's something God put in our hand, and we're going to walk it out. Some people believe that when you're in the ministry, that's the greatest call in the whole world. The greatest call in the whole world is that you would come to know Jesus Christ, that you would be born again, and that you would come into the kingdom. And whether you're just at a place where you're just serving and assisting at a small level, or whether you have a calling and you're an apostle called out and a sent one somewhere, neither one is greater than the other. In fact, the bigger one probably would be, in God's eyes, the greater, the one that serves all, because that's how Christ said he was. To be great, to be big, gotta be the servant to all. And so, there's just so many things I want to share. I love God more today than I've loved him ever. I'm so passionate about the things that I'm seeing and learning, and it's exciting for me to be here with you on Reflections in the Deeper Life, the journey of discipleship. Come join me weekly as I take you into my life. Open the book of my life. Open the journey that I began back in 1980. Took me to Florida, where I was plugged in and discipled. Then I went to Oklahoma to Bible school, back to Florida, to Europe for a year, back to Florida, met my wonderful husband, and began our life together and our family. That journey took us to Indiana, where we were with Dr. Lester Sumrall, and then California, where we helped plant a church, and my husband worked for Robert Schuller, and then to Texas, where we had the precious opportunity to work with the Copelands, that led us to Guatemala for 5 years as directors of living water teaching, and the things that we learned in these opportunities, which that was kind of a turning point for us, those 5 years down there in Guatemala, and in the inner workings of ministry. All of it, God was working in this pilgrimage, this journey that we've been on, because we've been on a journey. And any disciple, any pilgrim that's on a journey, that's on a road, that's discovering, that's thinking, that's learning, has to ask certain questions at certain points about certain things. And we began to question and really look in the scriptures and see certain things and just ask the Lord questions. And I'll tell you, God is my strength and my source. There were certain little things along the way that as we read the words of Christ, as we read the words of Paul, as we saw deeper into the scriptures, certain things that were asked of us and certain things that we didn't line up with what we saw the scriptures teaching about certain things. And then in 2009, while we were in Syracuse, New York, and Henry had this particular situation happen to him, a very powerful transformation took place in our life, and we we're so thankful. We love God so much. He's so good, and He's so merciful, and He's so powerful. And so come with me on this journey. Reflections in the deeper life, the journey of discipleship. I love you, and I can't wait to continue on sharing with you. Be blessed. Seek God with all of your heart. Seek to know Him more and more, like Philippians 3 and Paul's desire says, it's my deepest desire that I might know Him more intimately, that I might understand the power of the resurrection, what it has for me, the depth of His suffering, that I might know Him and be known of Him. God bless you, precious friends. Till next time.